Welcome, all you night owls and insomniacs, better known as my friends. Welcome to the Texarcist podcast. I am Shane Moore, and I'll be here for the next 3 hours taking your questions, comments, and personal experiences by live chat or by call. Tonight we'll be talking about CERN, time loops, and Fruit Loops. We'll discuss the possibility that we may be in a time loop, a repeated cycle we unknowingly experience and seemingly cannot escape from. Each cycle is slightly different. These subtle differences are signs something isn't quite right. A glitch in the matrix, you might call it. Most of the information on this topic is spread for the sole purpose of disinformation. Is Hollywood and television producing movies and shows to give us a hint of what may be going on? Is deja vu and similar experiences telling us things aren't what they seem? What plans do CERN have? What plans does CERN have? CERN, D-Wave, all that. They've shut down for the next 2 years to increase power to the maximum level it was built for. What happens then? They've already discovered the Higgs boson particle. What more are they searching for? After all, that was what they named the God particle. We'll discuss this and much more tonight. We'll take a short break and allow listeners who want to join our live chat to do so. Also taking your calls tonight at 903-956-0055. Outside the U.S., you may just add a 1 to that, 903-956-0055. I'll be back in 3 minutes.
Been 20 nights and 20 days, lost without a friendly face. No reflection from my soul, emptiness is rising tall. Calling to my brighter side, wishing for a place to hide, a place to leave the dark in me forever and ever. Chasing sunlight, racing for life, breaking silence to master the lies. You can tell a story, but I can deal. Telling it again just to make it real. I am on the run, I am chasing light. I'm finally a part of the race for life. For 20 nights and 20 days, I was drifting out of space. I turned away from every sound, from everything that shook my ground. But slowly I would start to change, feel the light within my range. The aberration time is due forever and ever. Chasing sunlight, racing for life, breaking again doesn't make it real. I am on the run, I am chasing light. I'm finally a part of the race for life. Chasing sunlight, racing for life. Breaking silence to master the lies. You can tell a story, but I can deal. Telling it again doesn't make it real. I'm on the run, I'm chasing light. I'm finally a part of the race for life. I'm finally a part of the race for life. I'm finally a part of the race for life.
And I am back. Welcome, Jacob. How are you? Have a lot of information tonight, big time. That those that are interested in what CERN is up to, you're gonna love this. Hey, Nazarene, glad you're here. Be talking about that place called CERN, the mysterious CERN, we should say. Definitely not something that is wide out in the open, is it? They keep themselves pretty tight-lipped about what they're up to. So who knows? It's kind of a, there's no telling. But whatever it is, it's certainly something that could very well affect us and affect a lot of people, and as strange as it sounds, a lot of different shall we say time itself. Great, Jacob, glad to hear that. Nazarene, are you doing okay? Hope so. Just while we're waiting for, we'll take just a few minutes and wait for those to join. I just sent the live link out a couple of minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, something like that. Just take a couple of minutes and let them join. But have you felt like something is off lately? Something. Hey, Georgia. Glad you're here. Hope you're doing okay. Was just asking if you all felt like there was something off, or something maybe coming. The main word that I've heard the past week, I would say, is event, and it's just been very synchronistic, I guess you could call it. And that word, well, actually two words, the event, and that's a term that's been used by the big, probably the oldest secret society out of all of them, the Priory of Sion. It's a very secretive group. Really, Georgia, you say that you've experienced some amazing synchronicities this week. Okay, well, you did last week too, so be sure and share those, please. And Nazreen, you say your room AC switches itself on. Okay. Switches itself on. Is it set to do that, or does it just switch itself completely on, which would be really unusual? But the Priory of Sion, there's a it's clouded in mystery, clouded in controversy. Some people say that it's a hoax, and but I tend to disagree. Back in the 1980s, there was a huge scandal. You might have heard of it. It was the P2 Propaganda Do Masonic Lodge that had ties with the Priory of Sion. The Priory of Sion, I believe, is over all of the secret societies. I believe that they are both working with the Vatican, and also in some aspects they're working against the Vatican. But nevertheless, the P2 scandal, you can Google it, and it was really, really a nasty, horrible thing. That's right, Jacob. The Large Hadron Collider at CERN is shut down for upgrades until I have the article right here, brother. Just happened to have it right here. That's what I was going to start with, and I'll get to that. It's now turned off, and it's going to be turned back on spring 2021. So, but back to the Priory of Sion. Back in the 1980s, the P2 scandal was huge, and it was a very, very mysterious, if not sinister, event that happened that involved both Italian members of this Masonic Lodge and American members, as well as the Vatican was involved big time. Okay. This is from Wikipedia, okay. Propaganda Do was a Masonic Lodge under the Grand Orient of Italy, founded in 1877. However, its Masonic charter was withdrawn in 1976, and it transformed into a clandestine, pseudo-Masonic, ultra-right organization. And so that's where I believe the Priory of Sion comes in. It's at that time, secret societies were banned in Italy, so they worked and kind of made a loophole. There's the head of the lodge was Lucio Gelli, who was extremely rich, extremely powerful. This Masonic Lodge was implicated in numerous Italian crimes and mysteries, including the collapse of the Vatican-affiliated Banco Ambrosio, I guess I pronounced that correctly, the murders of journalist Mino Piccioli and banker Roberto Calvi, and corruption cases within the nationwide bribe scandal Tangentopoli. P2 came to light through the investigation into the collapse of Michael Sedona's financial empire. What happened is Roberto Calvi, he and I'm actually going somewhere with this. So he was the banker, dubbed God's banker, and because of his close association with the Vatican. He was a chairman of Banco Ambrosio, which collapsed in a huge political scandal. Okay, now Calvi was found dead in London in June 1982, and hanging from the Blackfriars Bridge with bricks stuffed into his pockets, and that is a that's a sign. That's a signature. That's a warning, basically, to keep your mouth shut about things, because he had been talking about different things. Anyway, Calvi's clothing was stuffed with bricks, and he was carrying around $15,000 worth of cash in 3 different currencies. So, when we get back, I have to take a short break. When we get back, we will get into the synchronicities and everything, and be back in 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Blame it on me. They just want a scapegoat. I just tried to fit in. You've got to beg just to get in line. The fights, the lies. I just tried to be good. You've got to beg to get out of the woods. You've got to find what you want in love. Speak until you're hurt. If you want the world you're dreaming of, and find out what it's worth. They tell me I look good. They tell me I am fine. But you never seem to ever ask me why I cry. They tell me I look good. They tell me I am fine. But you never seem to ever greet me with a smile. No, next time. I know it's just me. I'll find another savior. Feeling cold to the bone. You've got to fight to get out of the storm. I know, it's time. I just tried to be good. You've got to break to get out of the woods. You've got to find what you want in love. Speak until you're hurt. If you want the world you're dreaming of, and find out what it's worth. They tell me I look good. They tell me I am fine. But you never seem to ever ask me why I cry. They tell me I look good. They tell me I am fine. But you never seem to ever greet me with a smile. No, next time, love. They tell me I look good. They tell me I am fine. But they never seem to ever let me come inside. They tell me I look good. They tell me I am fine. I want you to show me love, show me life. They tell me I look good. They tell me I am fine. But you never
And I am back. Anyway, let me catch up on the chat here. This is amazing because there's a lot here. Jacob, you say that I've seen 11:11 every day for the last six, most of those days twice. That's just 11:11, not counting the other numbers. 333, 555, 111, and so on. Okay. There's a lot of different theories about what those numbers stand for. I'm 11:11. Not too sure about that. 333. I know that's that has to do with the Typhonian current, which is gets into the occult, and we can discuss that later. 555. I know that's a Masonic number. I'm not too sure what that means, but anyway, so who knows? But it is strange that you're seeing those numbers all the same. George, you say also somewhat synchronistic is my grandfather was a Mason. No idea how or why, though, really. He had zero money. I think it was possibly because he was a blacksmith, and the trade itself is held in fairly high regard because it was believed it had links to alchemy. Yes, absolutely. I will never really know the story behind that, though. He never talked about it, obviously. Just have to guess. That's right. That's one of the key things in Freemasonry is you don't talk about it. Jacob, you say I feel something coming, but so far it doesn't feel negative or positive, really. It's blank. Okay. That's interesting. Georgia, you saying I'm not feeling anything negative. I've had some surprisingly melancholy moments, though. Well, it's up and down, right? Just make sure you come back up. Always. And that's with everybody. I mean, we're on this ride called life, or we're on this experience called life. Hey, Patricia. Glad you joined us. But we're all on this experience called life. It's like a roller coaster. We go up and down, experiencing everything, our twists and turns, and our laughter and tears. But when the ride ends, we get off the same place we got on, and experience, mission accomplished. But one thing about that is it's like we're here to experience those ups and downs, not just the happy moments when we're up. It's we're meant to experience the full spectrum, and and sooner or later in life, everyone does. Life is very much like a file. Matter of fact, the two words are anagrams. Life and file. It's a file that is built and that is kept, and I think that everything that happens in our life goes into that file. Our experiences and what we accumulate, what we gain through those experiences. Anyway, but as as you said about the P2 scandal, the the Priory of Sion is a French group based in Paris, and one of their main geographical areas just happens to be in the vicinity of CERN. And this is something that I have researched, something I've studied for the last, 18 years now. Wow, 18 years. So it's this was something before CERN started the Large Hadron Collider about talking about changing time and everything, and I already knew that whatever it was in this area, that it had something to do with time, with the very nature of time, space-time, whether it be changing it or maybe a portal. I know it sounds strange, but I was thinking these things. I mean, I did a lot of research, in depth. I mean, nonstop. Sometimes I was up day and night. I was obsessed with it, and that's just my nature. I mean, once I start on something, I'm in it to win it. It's 100 miles an hour or it's at a standstill. So, but it did pay off, because what I learned was that that very area there, France, Switzerland, that there's a lot of history there, a lot of mysterious history, a lot of unexplained history. Think of the Great Pyramid. Think of how massive it is, and how imposing it is, and impressive it is. By the way, the Great Pyramid is not the greatest thing in Egypt, from Egypt. That would be the Great Nazarene. So, I'm sorry, I had to say it. That's the wonder of the world. Now, the pyramid has its place, but Nazarene, she's there at the top. So, sorry if I embarrassed you, Nazarene, but it's just the truth. Just the facts, ma'am. Anyway, and I'm telling the truth. When Lona and I go to Egypt, we're not going for the Great Pyramid, we're going for Nazarene. So, hey, that's how it is. All right. So, think of the Great Pyramid and how massive it is and impressive. And then you're blushing. Okay. Well, I'm glad I can make you blush. So, in Georgia, as far as Australia, well, wait. I better watch myself about Australia, because we have several members from Australia. Whoop, foot and mouth, which is nothing new. But I'm going to gracefully slide out of this one. Anyway, okay. Other news. In other news, yep, foot and mouth, big time. Anyway, so the Great Pyramid is massive. I mean, it is just absolutely, like 13 acres, and 2.8 2 million something, blocks and everything. Okay, well, there is another structure that is not so well known. Matter of fact, hardly anybody knows of it because it could only be seen from aerial view. And I'm not talking about the Nazca lines. I'm talking about a 40-mile open air structure, a sanctuary, a sacred place of sorts. And it is in the form of a pentagram pointing up, a 5-pointed star pointed up, and the points are actually mountain peaks. And it forms a perfect 5-pointed star within, I think, an inch or a few inches. We're talking 40 miles. Okay, well, how this was found was, how this was discovered was there were people that that had knowledge from a long time ago. I'm talking, well, I believe it was the Priory of Sion. I believe it was the Knights Templar, because the Knights Templar had their headquarters very close to this certain area. So what happened was there was word of mouth. Nothing was ever written down about it. But the Renaissance painters, such as Nicolas Poussin, David Tenier, I believe is how you pronounce it. They painted different paintings. Nicolas Poussin painted the Shepherds of Arcadia, and David Tenier painted the Temptation of St. Anthony. And there were certain experts, people that studied sacred geometry, and they noticed that there were certain aspects of these paintings where certain people were placed, where their eyes were and everything, that if you connected those, that it formed a perfect, geometric pattern or symbol. And they also noticed that in these paintings that the background of these paintings were actual places, and they were meant to be painted that way. So it was like they had the knowledge, but at that time they couldn't openly speak about it. I mean, the Catholic Church would have massacred. I mean, they would have executed them. So they hid it in paintings. So what happened is there were, in just last century, the advent of flight, and there were pictures taken and everything of different places, and they began to look for these different places, and they said, okay, well, this is the backdrop. There's 3 mountains back here, and they knew what the mountains were. So they took the paintings and made transparencies and put them over a map, and lo and behold, it formed a 5-pointed star on mountain peaks in this area in southwestern France. And what is amazing about it is that some of the mountains, they show signs of having been cut or moved, and then as if they were welded. So you tell me, what power what technology, I mean, I can't even comprehend who or what could move mountains and why it would be so important to do so for this 40-mile structure. But then we come to the where CERN is, which is right in that vicinity. I mean, it's probably, I don't know, it's not more than 100 miles, I don't believe, but that's pretty close when you think about the entire world. And in southwestern France, it is the most naturally magnetic place on planet Earth. This one place, it's a very small village now. It was formerly the headquarters of the Knights Templar. People that go there now, very few people know of it, and it's been my research and been my study for the last 18 years, is Rennes-le-Château. Just a small French hamlet that seemingly just has no significance at all. It's just, well, people that go there, they've experienced spiritual experiences, both good and bad, or I should say positive and negative, however you want to look at it. And so it's a place of power. It's a place of extreme power. And it's definitely very, very mysterious. And like I said, it seemingly has its good aspects, but it also has its negative aspects. And I was listening to Coast to Coast radio show about 10 years ago. And there was a man on there who is an author, well-known author to some people. I had never heard of him before. His name is Winter Lake, and he's a Satanist. Shock. Anyway, he was on Coast to Coast, and they were talking to him, and they were interviewing him, and he happened to say something about, yes, I just got back from Rennes-le-Château, and we did a ritual there, and I'm like, whoa. Talk about my ears perking up. I was like, did he just say that? Because like I said, there's very few people that know about this place. And so when the show was over, or, closing, he said, those of you that want to contact me, he said, may do so, you can send me an email. So, buddy, I was right there. I mean, typing away. I sent him an email, and about 45 minutes later, I got an email back. And I was asking him, I said, what was the ritual that you did at Rennes-le-Château? I said, why did you do that there? And by the way, I was really impressed because the guy's a nice guy. I mean, he's a Satanist, yes, but I'm not going to judge him just because he's a Satanist. I was like, hey, buddy, what's up, and nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. I mean, and he's not into the, sacrificing and all this, stuff and everything. He said that he's a true Satanist and doesn't even believe in Satan. That doesn't even worship Satan. He worships himself. And so that was something that was pretty interesting to learn, is that he told me that, true Satanists, he says, they're not a threat to you. He said it's the self-styled Satanists. He said it's those that they don't know anything, and they think that by violence and by quote-unquote raising hell, that they're going to somehow gain power. And, he said those are the ones that are dangerous. But anyway, I asked him, I said, what was the ritual that you did at Rennes Chateau, and why did you do it there? And he said, well, it had to be done there. He said it was the only place on earth that could be, that ritual could be done. And I'm like, okay, that confirms my research that this place is, and I still do not have a definite answer. I've got several theories, but I still do not have a definite answer on why it is probably the most sacred place on earth. But he told me, he said, we did the ritual there, and it was the only place. And I mean, this village population is like less than 20 people. At the time of the Knights Templar, it was 30,000 people. And it was called Rede. I think it's Rheddae. Rede. And it was 30,000 people. Now it's less than 20, maybe even less than 10. It's that small. But anyway, there's it has been said that there are priceless treasures that are buried underneath Rennes Chateau and the surrounding area, which would also include, if you go out far enough, also include where CERN has the Large Hadron Collider. Now, when you think about that, come on. I mean, it's like priceless treasures are buried there. Well, now there's a really, really pricely treasure buried there. Some odd billions of dollars that's been, sunk in the ground. And it's, I mean, it's undeniable. I mean, it's in the ground. Georgia, you say, Mona, you say, that happened to Georgia the other day, didn't it, Georgia? Anyway, Georgia, I'm going to tell on you, she clicked on, and she was actually taking part, and it was already over, so that's... the only thing that you can say about that is that's cute, okay? That's just cute, Mic drop. Anyway, George, you say, I quite like that about the Satanist. Me too. I mean, and a lot of people may be shocked to hear me say that, but I don't look at people, even if I know they're a Satanist, I don't look at that person and say, okay, I see a Satanist. Or I see an atheist, or I see a Christian. No. I look at them and see a human being. That's where people go wrong. That's where people fall into serious error, is when, and that's why I hate labels. I hate labels. It's like, people say, well, are you an empath? Well, yeah, and I'm a lot more than that. I'm a box of, I'm a can of worms, okay? And I'm not even bragging. I'm just being truthful. I'm not going to limit myself to a label. I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, I'm this, I'm that. I'll let other people decide You know what I am. And but I stay away from labels. And Jacob, you saying back, I don't know what the deal was, but it wouldn't let me turn on the sound. And that happens all the time with you, and I think somebody else, I'm not sure who, but somebody else has a lot of sound issues. I'm not sure what the deal is. George, you say they're just taking a different path to the same place because we are all headed there. Well, as far as that goes, my view is that that the Bible says God is love. The Bible says that God is faithful and true. So God is love, because true love is faithful, it's true, and there is nothing that is more powerful than love. God's called the Almighty God. Well, if God is love, then, and there's no force that's more powerful than love, okay, there you go. I mean, it's pretty simple. People that get hung up on, well, you have to do this and you have to do that. You have to do it this way. You have to keep this rule, and you have to do it this certain way. Okay, just a little correction there, Your Honor. The Apostle Paul, talking in the book of Romans, he says, "For even those who have never heard the truth," he said, they who have never been shared the scriptures or whatever. He says, what he's saying is they couldn't possibly know the name of Christ. He says, but they know truth. Okay, well, who's called faithful and true? Christ is. And he says they know truth. He says by what they see with their eyes in the world, what they experience in the world, they see that it was created by a creator and that there is a source. And it's, he says, so if they perish, he said, if they do evil, if they choose to turn away from truth, he said they have no excuse. They can't say, well, nobody ever told me about the truth. The truth's all around you. So, yeah. So, but this place in southwestern France has the highest amount of natural magnetism in the ground. So I've wondered what is there to cause that great magnetic force, that pull, and I don't yet know. But truthfully, it wouldn't surprise me if it was some massive UFO, to be honest with you. That's one of the theories. Now, I don't really go along with that, but who knows? Who can say that CERN didn't choose that ancient site? Oh yes, ancient site. That site was not just picked randomly. That site was picked because it was a sacred occult site way back when. Who can say that there wasn't something buried there a long time ago? Maybe even before this current time cycle, which is what we're talking about. We're talking about these time cycles. And I believe that the Bible, the history of the Bible, goes back to Adam and Eve, and whether or not it's two literal people or a group of people or the creation of mankind, and it was called Adam and Eve, is irrelevant. What I'm saying is I believe that this is not the first creation. This is not the only time cycle. Matter of fact, I believe that this is the sixth. And that's something else that I found out studying this, researching this, is all the research, all the evidence pointed towards that this is the sixth cycle. Okay? And then I hear on the History Channel or Discovery Channel or something, in passing, because I don't watch TV. I don't have any use for it. I think most of TV, cable, I hate to tell you this, but I think it's disinformation. I think it is created and that it is promulgated and it is pushed to deceive you, to give you the exact opposite of what the truth is. But sometimes the truth is told. I mean, and I heard them say, geologists say that that a comet could wipe out, planet Earth, like the one that hit in the Yucatan Peninsula and wiped out the dinosaurs. Says, but this one would be much, much larger, and they believe that it has happened 5 previous times. And I was like, what did they just say? I mean, because I've said this for so long, and people are like, oh, okay, whatever, And I'm thinking, no, it's pretty, even the Bible, and I'm not preaching or anything, I'm just telling you the truth. Even the Bible speaks of a time before this time. It talks about a time previous to Adam and Eve. It's veiled, it's very subtle, but nevertheless, it's there. And it talks about a desolate world, And even in Genesis it says, in the beginning, in the original Hebrew, it's in a beginning. God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was void. In the original Hebrew, it says the earth became void. So you do the math. Okay, Mona, wait, let's see. Jacob, you say the internet was created at CERN and is monitored and controlled by them. Yes, I agree with that. Absolutely. Mona, you say why 6? Well, it's according to the another cycle. What do we plan our lives around? The week, the days of the week. So, as above, so below. What is each part of the whole contains the whole. You look at fractals, and that's another thing that's gaining a lot of attention, is that the fractals, the deeper you go into a fractal image, you can go on forever. And every part, no matter how small you cut it, contains the whole. So with these, with the days of the week, it would be a pattern, or would be a blueprint of these 6 cycles. Okay, well, during the week, what happens on the 7th day? That's the Sabbath. That's the rest day. So if that's correct, then this is the last cycle. This is the last one. And after this will be rest, better known as eternity, just like Georgia said, where we're going. And this is not something that I read. This is not something that I was told. It's not something that I heard. This is from my own research and my own theory. And that's why I was kind of shocked whenever I heard them say, geologists say that it's happened 5 times before. I'm thinking, well, and if that's the case, then this is the 6th, is what I've said. But we go back to the time cycles, and it's like, history repeats itself. I mean, on a grand scale, and then on a more detailed scale. I think that it's been said that history repeats itself every 33 years. Who knows? But one thing is for certain is it is cyclical. I mean, it's time is not in a straight line. Matter of fact, time could be described as a point where everything's happening all at once. So if you look at it that way, it's like people say, well, I hope I make it, or I hope I get this, or I hope I do that. If you think about it, if that's true, you already have. And it's just a matter of perspective. It's a vantage point. We can't see it. We can't reach it. But as strange as it sounds, we're already there. We're just going through the motions now. And but anyway, this today it says the Kaleidoscope Large Hadron Collider shuts down for 2 years. Scientists at CERN have turned off the Large Hadron Collider for about 2 years to enable a major upgrade and renovation work for the world's most powerful particle accelerator. The new and improved Large Hadron Collider is planned to be switched on in spring 2021. So, we take that and look at this, and it is going to be it will reach its maximum power, voltage, whatever. It says since 2013 the LHC has performed beyond expectations. It had achieved roughly 16 million billion proton collisions at an energy of 13 TeV and large data sets for heavy ion collisions at an energy of 5.02 TeV. These collisions produced enormous amounts of data with more than 300 petabytes, 300 million gigabytes, now permanently archived in the CERN Data Center tape libraries. This has the equivalent of 1,000 years of 24/7 video streaming. Now think about that. It's the equivalent of 1,000 years of 24/7 video streaming. That's a lot. In addition to the many other beautiful results over the past few years, the LHC experiments have made tremendous progress in understanding the properties of the Higgs boson particle. Now remember, the Higgs boson is called what? The God particle? The Higgs boson is a special particle, very different from other elementary particles observed so far. Its properties may give us useful indications about physics beyond the standard model. The new and improved LHC is planned to be switched on in spring 2021. So, when you look at it like that, they've already discovered what they were looking for, the Higgs boson, the God particle. What holds everything together. They said, when we discover this, we're going to know things, we're going to have knowledge, we're going to have information that will supersede everything that has ever been known. They have it. What else are they looking for? What do people with power want? What do they need? They don't need money. Money's irrelevant to them. But people with power, what do they want? What do they need? More power. It's never enough. And that's exactly why that I look at CERN as a modern-day Tower of Babel. They're attempting to become the creator, the source. And, for God's sake, they've already found what they called the God particle. But are they satisfied? No. They want to go further, which is what happened at the Tower of Babel, or so it says. And when you think about it, ask yourself this. Could it be that CERN, and I know this is far-fetched, but I'm a far-fetched guy. Could it be the Tower of Babel, since we're talking about changing time, or time travel, or black holes, wormholes? Could it be that the Tower of Babel might have been CERN itself, attempting to tunnel or to reach the source, reach God himself? Could it be that that it's another cycle where they're at it again, And look at their mascots or whatever. They've got the different deities there, and then their drama, their play that they had on a mass scale was very occultic, very disturbing to say the least, and it was just very strange how and why that a scientific, a supposedly scientific place, organization, would have a drama, a play, a production, if you want to call it that, that was all spiritual in nature. But this is something too, is that their main experiments at CERN are known by their acronyms. ALICE, named after Alice in Wonderland. She tumbles down the rabbit hole. What happens? Well, everything changes. Reality changes. She's in a parallel world. One of the quotes in that book is she says, or Tweedledee and Tweedledum, they say something like, would you like for us to read your past or travel in the past or something like that. And she says, I didn't know it was possible. And they said, well, what good is time if you can only travel in one direction? And the author of Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll, knew about this place in southwestern France. Knew about this area. Knew about The Secret, which I don't know what it is, but like I said, I've got several different theories on it. And also, Jules Verne was a very avid researcher in this place. Matter of fact, his books, the characters in his books, are named after places near this village, near this place. And so Jules Verne wrote about some really, really advanced stuff. I mean, he was a visionary before his time. And where did he get his knowledge? I mean, where did he receive his ideas? I mean, his brilliance. It's almost like he traveled through time and saw things and came back and wrote about them. Who knows? But anyway, so what is a time loop? Time travel in the past, parallel worlds, time loops. We heard about this, but actually, what is a time loop? A time loop is a phenomenon when some periods of time are repeated and re-experienced by someone. The person trapped in a time loop is trying to break out of this cycle. So more simple are some events that happen again and again and again many times. They can be forever infinite, or the cycle can be broken. A time loop can be started at a certain moment, event, and it's somebody's death. We see it in many sci-fi movies. Also, we see it in many sci-fi movies also, and we love it. Now it says this is an explanation as simple as can be made. We know that light can bend space-time fabric and gravity. When this happens and space-time is bent, 2 points get merged and they are only 1 point. So it's like instead of traveling from point to point, you bring the 2 points together and you're instantaneously there. So when that happens, then you have the loop. But there's a problem. Only black holes have the power to bend so much the space-time. Light doesn't. We know that it's not easy to create a wormhole. Now, what was the main concern about CERN when it started? Is that they would create a black hole or a wormhole that would suck the Earth and everybody in it into oblivion. That was the main concern. So when you look at a time loop or wormhole or black hole, you're talking about the very things that affect time, that bend time, manipulate time. It says it's not easy to create a wormhole, and it is not yet possible, but what if nature gives us one? Or what if nature helps us, gives us some added power, added advantages to creating one. There's a theory that laser beams can bend space-time fabric to this point, but everything is just now in theory. Now this is very controversial here, but there was a story about a 23-year-old British man that was trapped in a time loop for 8 years. Now, I'm not going to make any comment on this. I mean, for it or against it, but just, make up your own mind. He dropped out of the university because he was experiencing continuous deja vu. He didn't want any more to see TV or read newspapers because he said he knew everything. Doctors were shocked because they didn't find any sign of a neurological condition. The conclusion was panic attacks could start this phenomenon. A psychology expert, Dr. Christine Wells, said that this is the first case when a person is experiencing deja vu continuously, and he did for 8 years. The patient had many psychological tests and brain scans, and they didn't find any major problem. He started to have this deja vu from 2007 when going to the university. He had an anxiety for germs, fear, and he started to wash his hands very often. After a while, he took a break from his studies, then everything started. In the beginning, the episodes only lasted for a few moments, later longer and longer. He claimed that it was very frightening. In 2007, he returned to the university, and the deja vu feeling started again, very strong. He claimed that he was trapped in a time loop. Once in a holiday, he said that he already knew the place and what will happen there. In 2008, he went to the doctors. He took some epilepsy tests, but everything was normal. In 2010, was examined again because these experiences of deja vu didn't stop and became more intense. Academics from the UK, Canada, France came to study the case, but nobody knows for sure what happened and how this deja vu started. Dr. Wells made a lot of research, and she wanted to understand if there's any link between the clinical anxiety and the persistent deja vu. So is this just a strange story, or is it a young man trapped in a time loop? And that's pretty telling there. It's like I've said, reality, for the most part, is relevant. Each person experiences their own reality. What you experience as far as life, as far as reality, may not be exactly what I experience. So, could it be that he's in a time loop? Maybe. Who knows? Because it's his reality, it's his experience. Who am I to say that he's not? I mean, there are two kinds of time loops, scientists claim. One is a predestination paradox, which occurs when events in the future trigger certain events in the past. It's pretty deep. The second one is the ontological paradox, in which an object or information creates its past self, or even becomes its past self. But all about paradoxes, I will talk, as discussed, I'll talk in my next post about, because there's enough to say, and it's very confusing. There's a question here: the body or the spirit, or let's say the consciousness loops. I would say that it would be the consciousness, that it would be the mind. And if it's the body, then that's going to be pretty apparent. But I don't think the spirit would. I just don't. I don't see the spirit. I see the spirit as being higher than that. When you're in a time loop, things are normal until a certain point, and then they start repeating over and over. At that moment, your memories are reset. You don't remember things. And the same things happen again and again and again without ending. Is it possible our consciousness to jump in the past at a moment when something happened and we want to change it, but we don't have our memories, so we don't know what we have to do? What if the dreams you have are from other lifelines and also your deja vu. And that's something I want to ask Jacob, Georgia, Mona. What about that theory? What if your dreams you have are actually other lifelines? What if deja vu is proof or a sign that you're in a time loop, or that you're re-experiencing a certain cycle, and that it's that it's a sign that you are. Trish, you say, so does this mean that people could still be familiar? So does this mean that people could still be familiar? Yes. Yes, it does. It's if it's true, if it does happen, which I believe it does, the changes are going to be very subtle, and they're going to be very, very small, very small. You say, I did have dreams that lead me to have deja vu, sometimes even within the next day. Okay, well, let's talk about that. I've had dreams where I have pinched my arm. I knew I was in a dream. I pinched my arm. I tried to wake myself up, but it was like I knew that this was not a normal dream. Everything was very, very real. Now, what is real? Real is, real is just a word. Because truth is right now, right here, right where I'm sitting, right where you're sitting, is that real? Well, yes and no. Quantum physics says that that everything is made of atoms, and that atoms are 99.9% empty, empty space. Einstein said that the observer compromised any test, any experiment, by their consciousness. He said that went on to say, or theorized that things were not actually there until they were observed. What does that mean? It means your mind makes them real. Your consciousness makes it real. You say it mainly happened in 6th grade for me, and I would remember a lot from the dream, and there were a bunch of details I would remember, like a score on a spelling test, sitting in my chair, having a conversation with a neighbor, etc. I've even had intense deja vu where I even get dizzy, but it only happens for a moment. Interesting. Jacob, you say the string theory, brother, like quantum entanglement, there are two protons become entangled and then separated and sent on fiber optic. It's in opposite directions. When one was stimulated, the other reacted instantaneously. Yes, absolutely. And that is that has been proven, that you can take one proton, one photon, or two, and you can send them, you can split it, you can send one particle in one direction, the other particle in the opposite direction, and they will continue to travel apart, since the universe is infinite, forever. But when one makes a turn, the other makes a turn. As you said, what affects or what stimulates one instantaneously it stimulates the other, or the same thing happens to the other. But you have to ask yourself, okay, if that's the case, then what's the difference in them being together side by side or being one? Why were they separated if the same thing happens to each one, no matter how far apart they are? Interesting. Yeah, Groundhog Day syndrome. Yeah, very well could be. Says that there was a college boy a few years ago was sitting in the university parking his car reading a book for the next class. A city bus drives by with only one passenger. A lady was passing the street with her dog exactly in front of the bus. The driver shouts something, but they are lucky and pass the street safely. The boy opens his book again and reads his lesson. After 5 minutes, the same scenario happens. Now that would be freaky. The bus with one passenger, the lady with the dog, and the shouting driver. This happens a few times. Of course, the boy freaks out and he sends a text to his friend. His friend advises him to drive the car for a few minutes and come back. Fortunately, this helped and the loop stopped. Later on, something else happens to the same boy. The next day, he puts his alarm clock at a certain hour to wake him up. He wakes up, but he thinks to have a few more minutes. He fell asleep again and wakes up fresh. Looking at the clock, it was the same time as it was when the alarm started. But he wakes up and goes to the gym. He looks at his watch when he gets on the treadmill. The boy runs for a few minutes. Then he stops to take a drink of water. Looking at his watch, it was the same time that he started the workout. Strange. So that's kind of the time anomalies that can happen. But what I'm talking about, mainly about this, is I'm talking about one huge time cycle or time loop that may be affecting the entire world. I mean, it may be, maybe affecting if there are different things, such as different timelines. It could be affecting every one of them. And I'm going to take a short break, and when we come back, I will discuss that possibility. So, see you in 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Waiting for the car to stop. Wonder where the hell you are. Too much love and too much heart. But tonight you want it all. And it was you. Dancing in clouds, all in your own world. And if it's true, love has lost its power. Don't tell me you what you are. Too much love and too much heart. But tonight you want it all. And so you dancing on clouds, all in your own world. And if it's true, love has lost its power. Don't tell me you got someone else. Don't leave me here all by myself. Don't tell me you got someone else. Don't leave me here all by waiting for the bomb to drop, just enough to make me fall. Too much light, too much love, but tonight I want it all. Don't tell me you got someone else. Don't leave me here all by myself. Don't tell me you got
Okay, and we're back. Jacob, you say, or past lives. I've been thinking about that for some years. It's not a universe, it's the multiverse, an infinite number of realities happening at the same time in the same space. Well, yeah, I agree with that. Although it's I don't quite understand exactly how, but how it's formed or whatever. But I do believe that. You say that's part of what CERN is doing, trying to tear the fabric between dimensions. Well, according to Dr. Geordie Rose, that's already been done. So, and he says that that there are very advanced extra-dimensional entities far superior to humans that are on their way like a swarm. So as far as that goes, it's that's pretty much a that's kind of some bad news. I mean, if you get right down to it, I mean, that's just I cannot understand how someone could do that, and then for what? I mean, why would you do that? You know, unless you had something to gain from it, because you don't sell out humanity. And, you know, pardon my language, but I mean, this is what he says, and I quote, He says they're like the old ones that H.P. Lovecraft wrote about. He said they're highly intelligent, far advanced, and he said some people call them demons and say they're evil. He said, but it's not that they're evil. It's just that they don't give a shit about humans. They view humans as humans view ants. And I'm thinking, is this guy okay? I mean, are you listening to yourself? I mean, now, back in 1947, Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard were in the Mojave Desert doing the same thing. They were tearing holes, they were tearing passageways, portals in the fabric of space-time. But they weren't using quantum computing to do it. They weren't using the Large Hadron Colliders to do it because they didn't have those back in that day. Yeah, exactly right. What they were using was they were using magic, and that's magic with a K at the end, not sleight of hand, not funny magic. They were using deep, powerful rituals, and they knew how to use them. And the way they knew how to use them is because Jack Parsons was very, very close to Aleister Crowley, and Crowley. He learned a lot from Crowley, who was called, still called, the most wickedest man on earth of recent times. And Crowley had seemed insane. He had 3 wives, and every one of his wives went insane and wound up in mental institutions. Why? Because the guy was absolutely, he was, well, his own mother called him the beast from the book of Revelation. Now, when you think about that, in the book of Revelation, what does the beast do? The beast sets up the world system and is in control of it. He gives the what's called the Antichrist, the person that's the Antichrist, but truth is there's many Antichrists. Antichrist is a state of mind. It is turning away from that which is good and turning away from love, turning to hatred, Crowley did that. And I don't think Crowley was a bad guy, but, I'm just going to quote this. He simply didn't give a shit about anybody. So that pretty much constitutes, you may not be a bad person, strictly speaking, but if you don't care about anyone, that pretty much, you might as well be a bad person, because it's not normal for someone to have no empathy. In fact, it's very dangerous for someone to have no empathy, no compassion, and just not care about anybody. So, with that being said, Crowley basically got his knowledge from what looks like an alien gray. Now I know this is outlandish. I mean, it sounds insane, but just follow me. This was before anyone had ever sketched or drawn or described an alien gray. Crowley, and I think it was 1903, was in Egypt and wrote the Book of the Law, which is a very, very powerful occult book of magical power. And when I say magical power, it's not like Lord of the Rings magic. It is very much real. I mean, it is using your consciousness. Remember how we talked about Einstein said that no experiment could not escape being compromised when it was observed. Okay, well, how did Crowley, the magician, and when I say that, I'm not talking about sleight of hand, I'm talking about real magician, like you would read about in books, in history and everything. Actually, that simply means that he knew how to use his consciousness to affect different things, to manipulate reality itself. And that's the definition of magic, manipulation. But to take it one step further, like Crowley did, it's using the power of your consciousness, even as Einstein said, people observing, they don't even realize that they have this power, that they're somehow affecting the outcome of any test. And when you get down to it, not just any test, but anything. You're right, Jacob. Demonic entities. You can hear my dogs barking. Anyway, Crowley received his information from Lamb, L-A-M, Lamb. And he drew a picture. He drew basically a portrait of this lamb, which looks like very much like an alien gray. And for 3 days, he said that this lamb, this little creature, this little entity, dictated to him the Book of the Law, which he wrote. And I would highly advise you not to read that book, because it's seemingly hodgepodge. It's like, read it and be like, oh, I didn't get anything out of that. It's not what you get out of it. It's what it gets out of you. Remember that. There's a lot of things like that, you think, there's nothing to it. You read it, you get involved with it, you may study it, and you're like, it's hodgepodge, it's chicken scratch, it's crap, Well, yes, maybe it would appear that way, but on a higher level, just reading it, your subconscious starts putting things together. And Leia just saw her reflection. That's our little girl, our little fur baby. She's half Italian Greyhound, half Chihuahua. and she just saw her reflection in the TV and freaked out. She says, Daddy's talking about Aleister Crowley. She says, I know who he is. No, I'm kidding. No, all my dogs do. I have taught them very, very well. Our soon-to-be 9-year-old Chihuahua, Sawyer, he's black and he has a white chest. I've convinced him that he's a priest. So he runs around with Daddy, and he's like ready to fight evil. He's and they're avid listeners, and he's it's like we have the fur baby Marvel group. Sawyer would be Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy. Leia would be I don't know. Mona, help me out. And then we have Hedwig, and he's half pointer, half pit, and he weighs about 70 pounds, and he's the mild one out of the group. The mildest one and the sweetest one. Although he could take your leg off if he wanted to. But anyway, we're going to take a short break and be back in 3 minutes. So enjoy the song.
This big black cloud is coming down. Falling angels all around. A warm breeze from the subway underground. The snow is falling heavily over town. Walking backwards in the snow. I hide my tracks as I go. The main park birds are singing nice and low. But I ain't got a clue as where to go. There's a winding road ahead of me. I can't figure out where it goes. But if I try, I can make it home. And if I stand by what I know is real, not wander up on some byway, I should be fine. I'll be home to stay. Reaching out to find a place where I can feel a little space. Memories of tomorrow are getting old. There's no way to retrieve what I've sold. There's a winding road ahead of me. I can't figure out where it goes. But if I try, I can make it home. And if I stand by what I know is real and not wander off on some byway, I should be fine. I'll be home to stay. There's a winding road ahead of me. I can't figure out where it goes. But if I try, I can make it home. And if I stand by what I know is real, not wander off on some byway, I should be fine. I'll be home to stay.
And I'm back. Anyway, it says here that talking about CERN and D-wave quantum computing, Geordie Rose speaks on aliens and summoning entities, and it's he's the founder of D-wave quantum computing and computers and Kindred AI. So he says, quote, "These things we are summoning into the world now." Let me read that again. Quote, "These things we are summoning into the world now are not demons, not evil, but more like the Lovecraftian great old ones. They are entities not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want." End of quote. He goes on further to state that this is happening in the background while people bicker about politics. I'm not kidding. Underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we are not careful, is going to wipe us all out. End of quote. This writer says, by the way, I love how he tells us that while we are fighting about politics, purposefully designed distractions to divide and conquer people, which it has already done, that we actually should be talking about and concerned with what is happening without anyone knowing or approving. So, wow. Wow. Now, that is, he says, the things we are summoning into the world right now are not demons, not evil, but more like the Lovecraftian great ones. They're not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want. Then he goes on to say that that if we don't do something about it, with this rising tsunami, this rising swarm that's coming, and by the way, this was last year. Let's see. Last year, December 13th, 2017. So it was a year ago. And he said, what we're summoning into the world now. So, wonder how long it takes them to get here. And when they get here, Geordie Rose introduce us. I'm serious. You know, you can call me crazy or whatever, but yes, introduce us. And I'm not talking about the public. I'm talking about myself. I would very much like to meet them head on. And the reason is I'm not going to say that. Meant to say, don't have anxiety. Don't be fearful about this, because this is something that that has been foretold. It's been written about. It is something that that really doesn't surprise me. I mean, if it does happen, it really won't surprise me. If it doesn't happen, it would surprise me more than if it does. But I can say that there are some people who they can be as advanced as they can be. They can be as powerful, they can have this, they can have that. There are some people who know that no matter how strong they are, no matter how powerful they are, no matter how many of them there are, that there's something that they're missing. Something that they may be good, but they're not good enough. Let's just say that sometimes pride can really get in the way. So why do I say introduce us? Because well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't want to meet them if I didn't know something that they didn't know. So choose your battles wisely. And it's like choose your battles wisely and always have an ace in the hole. Don't show all your cards at once. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But yes. And the reason I'm telling people, if it does happen, don't be afraid, because you may or may not know, you have the same thing. You have the same thing, that you have something that they will never have. You have a power that they will never have. And they know it, they just don't want you to know it. So, and I know it sounds absolutely crazy, and it is crazy. But truth is stranger than fiction. So, anyway, any thoughts on that? Any questions on that? We've got about 30 minutes, so any questions about anything we've talked about so far? Let me see here. All right. I seem to have lost Jacob and Mona, so anyway, I guess I will just continue. What are your views on parallel worlds, parallel dimensions? What can happen there? And one thing is that okay, thank you, baby. One thing about the parallel dimensions, the parallel universes, or the parallel timeline, is that in southwestern France, where I was talking about, very close to where CERN is, it has been said that it is the closest. It is a place where the alternate reality or realities are closest, where they're so close that they actually overlap. and that's why that they have the strangeness there. They have the paranormal activity there. They have that that both positive and negative effect there. Mona, you're right. It can be identical, characters will be the same, but storylines will most likely be different. Yes, I think to I think that the differences will be very small and subtle, but it has been said that they say, how many parallel universes are there? And they said, well, think about every possibility that could have been. And then think about every one of those being played out. So we're talking about, millions. I mean, no telling. I mean, but it's this guy, Rick Stanley, I believe is his name. Rick Stanley, Rennes Chateau. Rick Stanley. If you Google him, read some of his research, where he talks about the parallel dimensions, the parallel realities, and he goes in depth. I mean, this guy has gone into some of the deepest caves in the mountains of southwestern France, and he has experienced paranormal phenomena that is beyond anything that I can even imagine in that area. I'm talking freak thunderstorms, electrical storms that happen like right over him, and where there's ball lightning that comes into a very important fortress, an ancient fortress that he took refuge in, he and his girlfriend. Ball lightning comes in to that fortress. It's very strange. Rick Stanley, Rennes Chateau. It's worth a read. I mean, it is very interesting. It is very interesting to say the least. And his girlfriend, she was right before this freak electrical storm. She was beginning to feel a presence, and I believe that he says that he stated that she actually was possessed by some entity. And then the electrical storm hit, and he said he was just beside himself. He didn't know what to do. He thought they were going to die, and a lot of really, really good information. Again, Rick Stanley. Crazy. But anyway. So I'm going to read this right here. Let me see here. Having a little bit of problems now with slow internet. It is just crazy slow. but we'll get to it. Okay, so Geordie Rose is talking about these things, that they summoned them, and, it's like crazy. I mean, why would you do that? Why would you summon them into our world unless there was something in it for you? I mean, they're so dangerous, they're so powerful. Why would you do that? Again, unless you had something to gain. And that's exactly what I believe, is if this is true, and it turns out that he has done this, then he had to have had direction. He had to have had something to gain from summoning them and basically allowing them into our world. So, really not good, But he seems to be bragging about it, I mean, he's bragging about these things, and it's just unbelievable. Not so much that he summoned the entity, or that there are entities, but it's unbelievable that he summoned them. I mean, that they summoned them. And then in the same speech, he goes on to say, and if we're not careful, what's your definition of careful? You're the one that summoned them. You're the one that called them. It makes no sense. Nazarene, you say there was this movie about parallel worlds. Can't remember its name now. In the movie, the girl could see herself living another life. It was interesting because the two characters were like twins having different lives. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. It's probably like that. There's another you, there's another you, there's another you, infinite. And every possibility, down to every choice you could possibly make. It's been said that you make them, you make every choice. But as I've said, it's like we are recording our reactions to the choices that we make. So if you really wanted to do a major, the best test ever, and you had the power to, would you not make it to where every possibility would be exhausted, and then you gain all of that information about the reaction? I think that it's certainly something that's it's just crazy, absolutely crazy to when he talks about allowing them into this world. It's like, okay, well, you did into this world, but having done that, does that mean that there's other, parallel worlds that they're going to enter too? I mean, does it work that way? Who knows? But I'm sure that we'll find out. No doubt about that. I'm sure that we would. I'm sure that we will. I mean, he says they're on their way. So it's like I said, introduce us. Why not? You know, I mean, if they're on their way, the way that I view things is if it's inevitable, if it's going to happen anyway, why draw it out? Why not just get it over with, you know? I think that there have been many what am I trying to say? Productions. There's been different. Of different movies like the TV series Lost. It was about time cycles. It was about the time loop. There was a time loop. If you ever watched that series, you'll know. And there were different times, different places, and it was very interesting. It sure got my attention. The different things that were shown on there. What was interesting was the places of power or whatever on the island in Lost. They were octagonal. They 8-sided. CERN's Large Hadron Collider is octagonal. 8 sides. And, it's weird. I mean, and Lost dealt with the Casimir effect, where mirrors are used and time is altered, although it's altered slightly. It may be altered more, depending on what's the power available or whatever. But anyway, who knows? And then the Matrix. Now that's absolutely, when you get down to it, that's absolutely one. Well, it's the most informational movie that I've ever seen as far as this subject is concerned, as far as the time loop, as far as the possibly living in a reality that is one of many, or living in a cycle that is one of many. About the nature of reality, what is real, and how your mind makes things real. It is well worth watching. I've watched it again and again, and it just never ceases to amaze me at how they made those movies, and everything there. I mean, everything in the movies is there for a reason, specific reason. There's nothing there that's there by accident. It's all there for a reason. And it deals with a lot of possible truths. I know that it may sound absolutely crazy talking about the Matrix, but you get down to it, it is something that you just have to watch a certain way and say, okay, could this be? I mean, could this be? Because everything around is pointing to, yes, it possibly could be. I mean, physicists, scientists, everybody, it's all saying, yes, we could possibly be living in a type of simulation. Some even say like The Sims or whatever. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do agree with we could be living unknowingly in a simulation, a time simulation, or a simulation of time and space, and not even realize it. Although there would be some people that would realize it, which in the Matrix, the people that did realize that something was wrong, they were the ones that were hunted. They were the ones that were a threat. And the main character, Keanu Reeves, Neo, he happened to be the hero unaware, as Joseph Campbell would say. The one, randomly chosen with, I guess you could say, with the right stuff. He was, well, I'll read it here. The quote from the Matrix, and it says, let me see. Okay. It says, this is the architect in the Matrix Reloaded Part 2. The architect talking to Neo during their only encounter. And this is the being, or this is the man. Although it's not a man, it's a program in the form of a man who had created the Matrix. And he's telling Neo, he says, quote, "Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix. You are the eventuality of an anomaly, which despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision." End of quote. Now, eventuality is something unpleasant or unexpected that might happen or exist in the future. Anomaly or anomalous, something different, abnormal, peculiar, or not easily classified. Something anomalous. They regarded the test results as anomalous. Deviation from the common rule. The one in the Matrix, which is Neo. And Neo is an anagram of one. Neo means new, new one. The hero unaware, the chosen instrument, also known as the prime program, is a systematic feature of the Matrix in which a special code is carried by a randomly selected human being who possesses vast superhuman abilities as an avatar within the Matrix, in addition to some extraordinary powers in the real world. The code mentioned has the function to attach to the person that carries in it all of the anomalies, which are the humans rejecting the matrix within the matrix, essentially making him or her, but in this case him, an integral anomaly, the sum of all anomalies. So when you look at it that way, it's basically saying the one is randomly chosen. And by the way, in the Matrix, it was Neo was the sixth one, the final one. There was 5 previous ones to him. The one to set people free from the Matrix. Most of the biblical prophets, Abraham, Moses, Jeremiah, especially Moses, would be you could classify him as being the one or the chosen instrument. Same with Jesus. Moses led the people through the wilderness into the promised land. Jesus led the people from darkness into the light. Jesus said a prophet isn't accepted in his hometown. In simply saying that he would not be accepted in his hometown because people are going to say, well, I've known him since he was such and such age, and that's just him. There's nothing special about him. He goes on to say the powers of the one, which are derived from the source, were given intentionally by, and it goes on to the creation of the matrix and how it's how it works as far as the people as their belief system, and to make the powers of the one, which are derived from the source. They were given intentionally by the machines, which you have to watch the movie and you'll see. Machines to make his or her role as a messiah believable, as they manifest in Neo while he is jacked into the matrix, while he's connected to the matrix, which is a simulation. The powers include extrasensory awareness of the changes within the matrix code, 2, unmatchable superhuman strength, speed, and stamina. 3, the power of flight. 4, practical invincibility to physical damage. 5, healing powers. 6, clairvoyance. And 7, telekinesis. Eventually becoming powerful enough to manipulate nearly any aspect of the matrix to his liking. So, it's there's a lot there, but that's what it's saying, is that his avatar, I find that very interesting, is that that we would look and say, well, yeah, he's a human being. He can't do this. He can't do that. I mean, he doesn't have the power. But when you look at it in this aspect, as well, it's not really him, although it would appear to be. It's his avatar. It's his avatar in the Matrix, just like in the simulation, just like you're playing a video game or something. So what can you do in a video game? Do a lot. You have that power, and that's what many metaphysical teachers. Well, I'll say metaphysical. A lot of spiritual teachers have stated, is that man or humanity has been deceived, or they've made the mistake of when they were born, they made a mistake of identifying themselves, the true you, the true them, their essence, as their body. And that's not you or spirit. But you identify with the body. And it's just something that we all, when we're born, we automatically say, okay, this is me, I'm the body, and that's not right. The true you is spirit. You're just having a bodily experience. Oh, excuse me. Some people, they say that we're a body having a spiritual experience. That's wrong. We are spirits having a bodily experience. And so, when you look at it that way, power of flight, all those powers that were listed, it doesn't seem too far-fetched when you're not talking about a human being. You're talking about an avatar in a simulation. And we will talk more about this because it gets deep. But if you can just put your reasoning and need for logic just to the side, just for maybe the next show, you'll begin to see how that it's feasible. It could be. And then you'll see more and more how different things start to add up and start to actually prove that it could be the case, or most likely is the case. And I know that sounds incredibly strange, but I wouldn't say it unless I had put things together and myself and looked at the different things. And one is one thing, and then we'll close for the night, is numbers. Numbers don't lie. And there's mathematical proof. Saying that was deja vu for me just now. Deja vu. Talk about synchronicity. Numbers do not lie. And there are equations, and there are self-correcting codes that physicists have found in and are actually a part of the nature of reality. Nature of reality itself. And we will get into that next show, about what that code is and how that could be. But it is the same code, or the same error correcting code that is found in simulation programs. So, who knows? It's certainly something to think about. So, anyway, thank you all for taking part in the chat, and thank you all for who listened and didn't take part in the chat, and thank you all who are listening to the rebroadcast of this. Hope to see you next show, which will be Monday at 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you have any questions or any topics that you want to hear discussed as far as the show, or even if you want to be a guest on the show, give me send me a message, send me an email at the texturespodcast@gmail.com, and tell me what your ideas are, and or if you're having problems and you need to talk about certain things, any paranormal activity or anything like that, feel free to give me a call or send me an email, thetexturespodcast.com, and I will get back with you. And but anyway, love and light to you all. Love you all, and good night from Texas. See you next time.